Hello, and welcome to the My Spiritual Friends podcast. I'm your host, Joni Lorraine. And here at My Spiritual Friends, we delve into our spiritual journeys and discover how sharing these experiences with others can lead to personal growth and flourishing. This season, we're shining a light on the spiritual lives of the LGBTQ+ community. We'll explore what it means to be both spiritual and gay, and discuss how we can build connections that support the unique and authentic spiritual needs of this incredible community. If you find value in the conversation today, please like and subscribe to the podcast. Your support means the world to me. And for more insights and resources, visit my website at jonilorraine.com and subscribe to my Substack at spiritualdirection.substack.com. If you feel inspired to contribute, I gratefully accept your donations at buymeacoffee.com/Joni Lorraine. Enough of that. Now let's embark on this journey together. I invite you to sit alongside me as we visit with my spiritual friends. Well, good day, everyone. It's Joni Lorraine here, and I am visiting today with Bonnie and Vicky Gale. Let me tell you a little bit about Bonnie and Vicky. Both Bonnie and Vicky grew up in the Baptist religion, and in fact, both graduated from Baptist universities. They studied other philosophies, knowing their journeys weren't meant to be mapped out by a strict rule book, but they studied in private. And then, well, the universe brought them together, and now we have the Gales, and they've been together for over 25 years. Vicky has been an educator, a small business owner, and a senior advisor, and Bonnie is a former LUT and spirit leader of a Unity church. She is currently an English professor at Kilgore College. And together, Bonnie and Vicky were leaders of various LGBTQ+ groups, including Pride Interfaith here in Austin, where I live. And they continue to explore teachings of both the old and new master teachers. And during the last 4 years, Vicky and Bonnie have hosted a spiritual book discussion group via Zoom. And I am so happy to welcome this afternoon my dear spiritual friends, Bonnie and Vicky. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, it's a privilege. Thank you for inviting us, Joni.
You bet. Well, here on My Spiritual Friends, we are exploring what it's like to be spiritual and sometimes religious, if we want to go there, and being LGBTQ on this particular season. So if you would open up and share with us and be willing to track a little bit better than I did in your bio, a little bit of your story and how you came to be particularly spiritual, your spiritual path, and if you want to share anything about coming together as well.
So I'll start. I'm the oldest, so I experienced it first. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and there's definitely a set of rules that one must follow. And there are certain people that apparently God did not love. And if you fell into that situation, you were to stay away from any activities that would seem natural so that you wouldn't be a sinner, because absolutely everybody was going to go to hell. In fact, you were totally unworthy if you were one of these people. And I went ahead and bought that. I bought that idea that I was unworthy, and I just wasn't good enough to be like a regular person, so I tried to act like a regular person. I got married, I had children. Things didn't pan out for me because sooner or later I realized that, you know what, that rule book doesn't even mean the same thing to me that it does to a lot of Baptist preachers. I could read some things into it that they weren't teaching, but more importantly, I started reading some old masters like Neville Goddard and even Wallace Wattles and Florence Scofield Shinn, and then their contemporaries to me, Wayne Dyer and different ones that really led me to understand I was okay. I mean, you can't be a child of God. You can't be God. You can't have this soul within and still be unworthy, still be someone who is set aside. When we got together, I'll send this over to Bonnie in a second, but when we got together, we'd been together for a few years, and then we moved to Austin, and Bonnie said that she wanted to try 4 churches. And I was not happy with that idea because I knew how churches had treated me.
Right. At that point, we had already decided early in our relationship there was not a church that would accept our relationship in any way. And we did not want to be distracted after putting in our own independent studies by anybody telling us this is the only way. Live with some of the teachings that were judgmental and toxic and separating people into categories. And it was we just didn't want to buy into that, except I thought Austin might be a little different. Let's try. And she didn't want to. So we thought we're very methodical. So we picked the one as absolute farthest from our house. And it was Unity Church of the Hills. And when the first day we went there, Reverend Steve Boland had visitors stand up, which we were intimidated by, mind you. We did not want to be conspicuous at all. And we had seen some churches that said they were GLBTQ friendly, and we were like, whatever. We don't know what that really means because they're probably going to get you in the door and then lock you in and try to change you. And so, that was nice that we saw that. But when he had us stand up, he said, I know something about you. And I think this is the message for any GLBTQ person. He said, I know something about you. I know that you're perfect and whole just as you are. And
as soon as he said that, I turned to Bonnie and said, he doesn't know who we are.
And so we didn't trust it. We did not trust it. And I think that is a message for anybody ministering to the LGBTQ community is they might not get it right away. They might not feel it in the bottom of their soul right away that they are fine. They're just fine. They're just perfect and whole, just as they are, just like the Reverend told us that day. But it takes a while to let that sink in after you have been through what some people call toxic religion, that kind of thing. And even though we had healed in a way for a while, it still was such a refreshing thought that it scared us and made us feel like we're going to watch this. We're just going to wait for the shoe to drop or something. And it didn't. It was like, there are people in the world that are like-minded, yes, that can be very accepting and understanding, and, like we've said before, celebrating us, not just tolerating, but celebrating us. And that's where we really felt like we launched into more of who we totally were and to come to total peace about not just us, but people around us. The more we accepted ourselves, the more we could look at anybody and accept them for who they were. And that was just a magnificent part of our own growth. It's our spiritual relationship then built off of our own studies and sharing and knowing that no matter what we've gone through as a couple, things that, we've been through our share in 25 years of, we blended a family. We've had struggles with, that. We've had, health issues. We've had, ups and downs with jobs and careers. Moved from, we started out in the Houston area to Austin. Now we're in East Texas, my God, East Texas, where, the demographics are not quite as friendly as some places for the LGBT community. But, it doesn't matter. When we are okay with ourselves, we find that others seem to start accepting us that way as well. So, that's kind of the beginnings of our path to now and how we kind of just learn together and develop together and know that the principles of spirituality and love just have been our mainstay through it all.
You guys are inspiring. Now, there's a couple of things that I thought that bubbled to mind when you guys were talking. First, and I want to put a pin in this and come back to it. Vicky, you said you named several authors, and I am. We'll come back to this. I'm interested in how you got there, but more importantly, I'm interested, first of all, in how you got together. Like, where did you? What's your story?
Oh, it's kind of early tech. Online, Yahoo
Actually had
a free dating message board, and they literally had women seeking women, which was quite progressive for 1999. And Vicky posted an ad, and I answered it, and she had, of course, a notebook full of the people who answered her ad,
great.
and she was systematically going through them.
Thank you.
And so she had made the mistake of letting that book at her house
Upstairs.
Yeah, and in the study there, and so I made sure that the rest of the pages were gone. So so we met online and in the Houston area. So
It's right outside, talking to someone.
Okay.
I was just gonna wait.
Okay.
She may be far enough away.
Okay.
She's not far enough away yet. I'm gonna go.
So you'll have to edit this?
Yes, but I'm just. It'll be great so long as, and if we stay as quiet as possible, it'll register as flat, so I can just. Okay, good. I think it's okay. Nope, she's still yakking, which is weird because usually that's me, right, y'all? I'm the extrovert. I think we're good. Okay, so 1999. 25 years. For those of you who are not familiar with, nope, she's still talking. When she does her podcast, it's just her, and she goes in the closet and shuts the door. I mean, she literally goes in the closet. Thanks for your patience.
I think your goal is like to come out of the closet, right?
Yeah.
To talk about people outside.
Yeah. Or she goes in and she's very quiet and so forth. Okay. You know who's going to have to help me edit if anything is noisy over that last question you answered? Okay. She's better at it. Okay. Here we go. She's back. It's all good. So you met in 1999. That is remarkable, I think, by any standard these days. Much less that you two have moved through all of the challenges of what it means to be in the middle of a religion or a spiritual set of beliefs that wasn't in support of you. So, congratulations on that. So back to that question of these authors, these masters that you mentioned, I'm curious about how one goes from Baptist teachings and finding these sort of masters and who they are. Just tell us a little bit about who they are and how you came across them. So
I actually felt like I needed to go back to the beginning, and I started reading some, like even Wallace Wattles, that talked about it. They were empowering to me. Neville Goddard, that's the one that I really concentrated on, because what he talked about was that we are God. I mean, we are created in God's image, therefore we are God. We have the love, we are the love of God. And so that really was eye-opening to me, and I read numerous sermons that he had given in different transcripts from classes that he had held in the 1940s and 50s and that kind of thing. Then I actually, when I met Bonnie, I felt like it was time to indoctrinate her a little bit, but I couldn't do that with Neville Goddard. So
what is that man?
Tony Robbins.
Oh, Tony Robbins. And I think that the bottom line answer,
that man,
is that she just, we're just educators. We're prolific researchers. And she just would search out spiritual teachers and review and know that they were coming from more of an Eastern philosophy or something along those lines, and just start latching onto them. I remember we also have Tony Robbins. We listened to the cassette tapes, late 90s. Again, all that empowerment that this was not a message we had heard, that you can be all that you want to be and you are a wonderful person, that kind of simple message. But we would read like Wayne Dyer, and we would read the foreword, and the foreword would say that he studied Neville Goddard or this person or this person or this person. And we were like, okay, we'll put the Wayne Dyer aside for now. Let's read these where they got their information. And we just started tracing it, so we were, as we studied when I became a licensed Unity teacher, and they started showing these different charts of different spiritual groups and how they branched out. It's like those real fringe areas I had already read, because we were reading historically kind of as we were going. And we're just weird like that. We just geeked out on that kind of thing. And, then we, would bring it up to speed, up to the current stuff. And I guess we're both prolific readers, so that helps too. So
lately I've become a prolific listener. I had no idea. I used to be
Vicky still reads. Sorry, go ahead.
I used to be a prolific reader. Now I'm a prolific listener.
Yes, and I do more audio books because by trade, like you mentioned, I teach literature composition, and it's like, plumber's pipes always are leaky. I read enough for work that I don't read. I listen to audio, but she reads. We have gone through I don't know how many Kindles because she literally will break them because she reads with them so much. So
I love that. I have been. It sounds to me, if you're anything like me, you've also been a seeker. So your desire to learn makes you a seeker. And is there anything you're willing or want to share about, speaking of seeking, that about your story that goes even a little further back? Just in terms of, that question about like, when did you know that you were different?
That was yours.
Yeah, and I think we both could express that we felt out of sync from the time we were very young. Certainly by middle school, we interpreted it in different ways. And you could reflect on that just about, just our own sexuality. We were just out of sync. I felt because of that. Also, I was just out of sync in a lot of ways of the teachings that I was getting from the churches I was in as well. I questioned them. I was pretty much labeled as that rebel. I was told many times not to question. So I think that kind of feeling, whether it was or relationships, or the teachings that we were having, we just weren't quite meshing. And I know I did. I developed just coping skills, keeping my mouth quiet about things. I would dig into different aspects of Bible and Bible teachers, and it just never was ringing right to me. I did the same thing Vicky did, which was, that if you can comply enough, maybe you could, either the outer mask that you were putting on, if you just kept complying enough, maybe that could become you. I thought maybe I could be this wonderful Baptist wife, maybe, if I just did that right. And, honestly, as you literally grow up and mature, you realize that's not your true, authentic self. And that's where we're very grateful we have children and grandchildren. But at this point, that was part of our journey that was initially, certainly, it just was not authentic. And we had to understand that about ourselves and separate our marriages off of us. And continue on. And we're fortunate we have grandchildren now that are non-binary and trans, and I guess the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. And so we're seeing things through those eyes now, as well, and to be a support to that next, not just our, because our, skipping the generation of our own children to our grandchildren, and being a support to them as they are part of this alphabet crew that you mentioned. So it's interesting.
So it didn't really skip everybody on the children's side. I do have a gay son.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
So
yeah, she does have a gay son.
Unlike Bonnie, I wasn't the one who, as I was a teenager, I was trying to seek out or be rebellious. No. I was a leader in the church youth group. I just secretly thought something was wrong with me. And what was wrong with me is I was not being authentic.
And then you're judging yourself all the time.
Right.
And that's how you live. Like I said, back to fast forwarding, when even after we studied and someone tells us, it takes a while. I mean, this is a healing process. And I think, again, like you mentioned, I was a spiritual leader of a small unity church for 3 years, right before COVID times. But that love and acceptance you give to people is important, because you don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know, how much healing they've done in certain areas, where they are at all. And I think that, just universally, just loving and accepting and supporting and getting to know people wherever they are. If they fall into these camps of LGBTQ plus, or if they have some other toxic situation that they've gone through from whatever it might be, their childhood, or feeling unworthy because of ethnic group or anything. I think our job, if you would, is just to just be so supportive and loving to people, listening to them and seeing where they are on that journey, and see what you could do to support them, whatever label or background they came from, period.
Hilarious. What time is it? Yep, it's dinner time. The dog's all... He has to go out. He's got to go out of the room. So you mentioned you have non-binary, trans, is it grandkids?
Grandkids.
So it's interesting. I have a niece who is in a relationship with a trans person. And in my conversations with her, the generational gap, it seems to me that I feel like when I was her age, I was much more patient about the same guy that she's impatient with, her dad, about being accepting. The history, we lived this history. This was just 79 Stonewall, and we've lived this history. And
right.
I'm interested in how you navigate living this experience of, as I had, of our progress with people who weren't there, people who we've worked for, as it were. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. And in fact, there was one time when we had both of those two grandchildren by themselves, and we talked about some histories. We talked about some things that we felt like they needed to understand in order to function in the world, because to them, if you go by what a young person seems to think these days, is that the world is their oyster, and that's great, and I love that, and I want that to be true. But they don't have to step too far out of their comfort zone to see that a lot of the world's not there yet. And I want to be able to protect them, yet have them live their authentic lives from, such a young age is just incredible.
Yeah. For them to understand more about themselves than we ever did at that age.
Yeah.
And and they're surrounded by, supportive parents and their schools and everything. It's just unbelievable how supportive they are. But, they do have their eyes open to what the world is like. And I think that we, at one point, felt like the history that we witnessed, and not even looking further back to the history that came before our existence, like you said, in the 70s and on, we thought that at one point we were handing them such a beautiful world, at one point, marriage was legal. We had been together for so long. We got married. It was like, yes. And now we have grandkids, and it was before they started talking to us about who they really were. But we thought we were handing them a wonderful, wonderful world situation. And, politically things have changed a little bit and got a little mixed up. And so but that's all we could keep doing, is keep supporting them. And they have that head start because they do have people around them and us that do support them. At the same time, they've had to make some quick, hard decisions about some people in the family that cannot support them. Both families that have these specific kiddos have had to make those tough decisions and say, if you're not going to be supportive, we cannot have a relationship. You get those mixed, they've gotten that, especially my grandson's gotten some severe mixed messages from very close people saying, I could accept you if you're gay, but trans is a different thing. It's like, okay, how does that, I don't know how they figured that out, that one's okay, but the other isn't,
Yeah.
So
one of the relatives said to him that God doesn't make mistakes. And that's absolutely true.
And the grandson said, "You're right. Here I am."
Absolutely true. That our grandson came to this world to have this experience, to go through this journey just the way he is. And God did that, okay, we're good with that.
Yeah.
But this person in his life can't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so even though things are much better in that regard for young people, it's so open to talk about. They can talk about it to friends at school. Things are different, and that's so awesome. But there's still a lot of challenges that they have to endure.
Yeah, trans people are our pilgrims, I think, in the 21st century. They're the next pilgrims in the alphabet gang, as it were.
Yeah, for sure.
So some of this stuff you're saying is reminding me of your tenure, if you will, at Unity Church of the Hills as the lead of our Rainbow Ministry. I got a sense, and I want you to share more about this. I got a sense that you have a profound experience of working to figure this out on your own and sharing it with others, and that's the impression I got in regard to the work that you did with the Rainbow Ministry there. Can you share, anonymously, of course, any experiences you might have had with folks coming into the church, and how you bridge those gaps, what their concerns were, and how we can support people who are LGBTQIA plus in their work, their spiritual work?
Yeah, I think that one time that comes to my mind was we were hosting an event at the church, and
a dance.
It was a dance, a rainbow dance. We were parking the cars or something. I don't know. We were there in the parking lot before people could actually find their parking space. And this woman couple rolled down their windows, and they asked so many questions. And they just finally came to the conclusion that it was just viscerally, you could see the one viscerally reacting to being on a church property so badly that they had to turn around and leave.
She started sobbing. She just didn't feel like it would it was safe. So when you say things that we said to people, there wasn't anything that we could say to her that changed the decision for her that day, but perhaps seeing what was going on and talking to us and meeting us maybe helped her a little bit, but not everybody is going to be able to make a split decision that, oh, okay, I'm okay over here. I can be over here. There's a huge trust thing. And so you mentioned that you wanted to hear our thoughts on what maybe a spiritual director could address when working with LGBTQ plus XYZ. And I kind of feel like there's three things, and we've already mentioned them. But first, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions that this person is feeling a certain way. We're still all people, have all had different experiences, different family situations, different amounts of acceptance. And so just make sure that you find out who this person is. This is globally one of those people. Second is the trust factor. And we're living in a time when our elected officials feel like it's okay to introduce legislation that says these people are bad and you can't do these things. And it's okay to discriminate against these people.
And they don't know those people.
Right.
But, so up close and personal really matters.
Right. So in a time when society says it's okay, really, if you ridicule these people or harass them or even commit violence towards them, it's hard to be trusting if you have this other layer, this other veil that you have to live life through. And so a spiritual director needs to understand it's up to them to establish a relationship that would encourage that trust. Don't assume there will be trust, because there probably won't be for a while. And the third thing is, you know what? We're all love. We may have come to this world and experienced some things that make our outward appearance not look like love. We might be angry. We might have a lot of issues, but we're all love, every one of us. And if the spiritual director could see that love, could address that love, could treat the person as love each and every time you meet with someone that's LGBTQ plus, that needs someone to see them, not to see that label. That, I think, is critical.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like you have addressed in your response, I feel like you have addressed a piece of my life and my journey about how I am unique in terms of my story. Every one of us is unique in terms of our story. In fact, Bonnie, when you said something about maybe Austin is different, I think maybe Austin is different too. I'm a native Austinite. I came out in Austin. I hung around. I was a theater geek. My mom was really great. My mom was great about my being queer, and she struggled with it, perhaps, but I didn't know that. My family struggled with it. I didn't know that, but I'm pretty sure they did. But they never let on to me. They did their own work. And my experience of isolation or being different from other people really happened when I was 12, when my dad died. And I thought nobody else had a dad. I mean, everybody else had a dad. Nobody else had a dad that had died. And, that was my experience of feeling like I was different from other people. And some of us come out in different ways. I had to come out about that. That was my work as I grew into an adult. That was my work to do. It was there. But it was pretty okay. I was pretty okay being queer here in Austin.
Yeah.
from high school into sneaking into bars where I was okay, except for the part wasn't old enough to be in there and they kicked me out. It's just like that sort of stuff worked out. So go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, I was just saying, you're right. The environment that you're in, whether from family on out, the society, that matters. And that's what we would like to envision, is that just continue to be still expanded to, polite respect,
Right.
on up. And on up to totally embracing anyone who's different. Having friends of color, there's a struggle there too. So there's just not been a magic wand over any of these marked differences in people where all of society totally accepts everyone completely. These teachings that we have that are accepting and positive and empowering, these teachings that we've been talking about, they change lives. They change us from the inside out. And then as we're changed, we just exude more and more of that, like Vicky mentioned, that love and acceptance to everyone. And I mean, we're not perfect, but that's the hope. And I know that we've seen those teachings totally change people. Back to when I was just the short time a spiritual leader at a small unity of Lake Travis that, like we said, it did close after COVID. We still are in touch with many of those people. Some we still meet with on Monday nights in our own spiritual discussion group, totally watching them change, using the spiritual principles that we've been talking about, just dig down deep into their lives and be their stronghold through everything, through their joys, through their sorrows, everything. And, the power of that, and it is just the power of love and acceptance. That's what we hope for the world, when we hope for our own children, grandchildren, is that's what they would hold on to mostly. And that's what sustained, because it's so simple, and profound, and day to day, that challenge, always.
So you mentioned principle. So I've got two questions in regard to principle. I just hope that you will share with the rest of us. By principles, I'm presuming you mean unity principles, or do you mean the principles of the masters you mentioned earlier? Can you be specific about that? And in speaking of your specificity there, what teachers / readings or experiences actually changed how you saw life?
Yeah, and I think that we would both say that, we're talking about any empowering, positive, spiritual teaching from any positive spiritual teacher that would, at their core, believe that the human being that they're writing to, speaking to, is indeed perfect, whole, complete, worthy, and capable, like Marianne Williamson says, of, I don't know her exact quote, but just that we should be concerned about how powerful we are instead of how weak and diminished we are as people. And I think that we would, like we started out, all the many teachers in and around unity. With my studies as a licensed unity teacher, I then stayed in a very pure unity lane. But they derived, Charles and Myrtle derived many of their bits of knowledge and understandings from others. And so that's what we do as well. And you could see it going on and on, to this day. Many in the media express higher consciousness thoughts and mention various aspects of spiritual life and practice. And we have a little spidey sense, and we, tune into those kinds of things because they enhance our lives. Unity teachers are wonderful, but there are so many more as well that have those same basic principles. So we just look for that kind of thought.
Really, the person that is trying to get their message out to me in order to resonate with me, they have to express the principle of oneness, the oneness consciousness. In my background, in Bonnie's background, we were taught that there was good and evil. You mainly fell in this evil spot. And that puts you pretty helpless if that's where you are. But any teacher who is really understanding that we're all one, we're all the same. If I do this to you, I'm doing it to myself. Those kinds of principles, yes, fall under unity principles for sure, but it doesn't have to be a unity teacher per se that understands those same things.
What would you say to, thinking about this so I don't awe through the whole, what would you say to the individual who is struggling with their own identity or sexual orientation?
I'll address that.
Okay.
I struggled with it for years, and I was never happy. You know, we are so concerned about what this person's going to think, what this group of people will think, how I'm going to be accepted, instead of thinking, what am I supposed to do? Why did I come here for? What is it about me that's different, that makes me special, unique, a gift, not something that needs to be hidden, not something that needs to be trashed, but something that needs to be honored. And I think really relaying that kind of understanding that I've never been happier than when I became authentic. I had happy times, you know, when I was not being authentic, but I didn't understand what happiness was until I understood who I was.
I think that back to our relationship, one thing, we have been asked is 25 years, how long, what's your secret? And to us, from day one, we would say, I love you no matter what. And I believe that that's the same spiritual message that I certainly give to anyone I meet that's part of the alphabet crew. Certainly our grandkids in this time, whereas they're, just 15-ish years old, the oldest ones that are experiencing this, that no matter what, full acceptance and support. And like you said, your mom and dad didn't relay their struggle or question about it. They just out to you said they accepted you. Because we know it finding out that your granddaughter is really your grandson, it takes you a minute. And we are, a gay couple, and we just were like, it takes a minute because you have to wrap your head around some things and you have to change your language. Pronouns matter now. And, you have to get into that and start, your mind literally has to make some shifts. And talking to my own daughter and son-in-law as well about that. They had projected thoughts about what was going to happen with their child, and now it's a different thought. And so you do have to make those changes and adjustments, but no matter what, I love you and support you, no matter what, just as you are. And I think that's key.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that you might find important for those of us who are listening and out there?
I wanted to also say, because I've used the phrase before to people that are part of the LGBTQ groups, that being part of those groups and being spiritual is not mutually exclusive. It seems like many of us, we accept ourselves, we come out of the closet as being gay or one of the alphabets. And then we have to almost go out of another closet to tell people we're spiritual. that we are even involved in a particular church group that's accepting. You're a part of a denomination that's accepting. And you have to explain that sometimes to people because, we've run across folks that'll say, because you'll say, God forbid you say the word Christian. They're like, no, you can't be Christian and gay. No, you can't. It's like, you can. You could be that. You could be any particular religion. You could just say spiritual. You could say any number. You could say you pray. You could say any of that and be gay. You can. And so people have to understand that it's not exclusive. And they have to, as they accept themselves, they have to understand that God accepts them as well in whatever way that their path has led them to express themselves spiritually as well as authentically in who they are as a person. So I think that would be a message I would give.
My goodness, that is perfect. I have mentioned it before that personally, sometimes it has been harder for me to come out, especially to other queer people, that I'm spiritual or that I go to church or that I'm a spiritual director or what have you. It is so sometimes you feel stuck between these two realities. And I think that was, Bonnie, I think that's beautiful. I'm so glad that you mentioned that specifically, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about what it's like and what it can be like if you are part of the alphabet gang and you have a desire to be spiritual. So I can't thank you guys enough. You know what? I love you no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what, Joni.
Back at you.
And I'm so glad we had this chance to speak together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
We love you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks for joining us for My Spiritual Friends. I'm your host, Joni Lorraine. If you enjoyed this experience, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast and YouTube channel. And thanks for joining us for My Spiritual Friends.